which means it is now time for our third and final guest on this week's episode, and it is the one and only, the wonderful, the pickiest of all the blinders himself, Mr. Cillian Murphy. Fantastic Irish actor. Of course, you will have seen him in 28 Days Later, The Wind That Shakes the Barley. You throw a stone at a Chris Nolan movie, chances are you'll hit Cillian Murphy in it. He is, of course, in Free Fire, Ben Wheatley's Free Fire as well. He is a DJ on Six Music, and he also pops up in a little show called Peaky Blinders and John Krasinski's A Quiet Place Part 2, which is a sequel, of course, to A Quiet Place. And Cillian in it plays a mysterious stranger called Emmett, who may or may not be able to help Emily Blunt and her family in this post-apocalyptic landscape. And speaking of post-apocalyptic landscapes, we're kind of living in one right now, thanks to the pandemic, which delayed the release of A Quiet Place Part 2. It was one of the first movies to really be delayed and pushed back. It was about to start screening to journalists, as you're about to hear me explain to Cillian in the interview a year ago, or a year or so ago, before everything started going to shit. So that's where we start talking about. We also talk about what attracted him to the film, of course, what's keeping him going in the pandemic, and the concept of the acting holy grail. Always have a good time talking to Cillian Murphy. He is a sound and very thoughtful actor indeed. So here we go. Me talking to Cillian Murphy. Do please enjoy. We are delighted to be joined on the Emperor podcast by the star of A Quiet Place Part 2, Mr. Cillian Murphy. How the devil are you, sir?
I'm grand. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I can't complain. This is a conversation that we were meant to be having, I think, roughly 16 months ago, because people had started seeing, in the journalist fraternity, people had started seeing A Quiet Place Part 2, and then obviously everything started shutting down. And what was that experience like from your perspective, from your side of things? Because you must have been gearing up for this big publicity push at the same time.
Yes, it was very strange, very odd. I actually went to New York to do the premiere, and I was there for about 5 days, and it was just, when it was reaching that pitch where everyone went, okay, this is really serious and things are starting to shut down. But people were thinking it was serious, but then hoping it wasn't serious. Everyone was so unsure and uncertain. And then by the time I arrived back home in Dublin, the schools had shut in Dublin and the film was pulled, and I was supposed to start shooting Peaky Blinders. That was pulled. So everything changed during that flight when I flew home. So it was bizarre.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you do to kind of keep yourself sane in those first few months? I know that you said recently that Six Music obviously helped you with that. Was that the main thing for you, music and throwing yourself into that?
Yes, it definitely, music has always been a support for me all my life. But like everybody else, we try to make the most of it, and I never had that length of time off with my family. It was the longest I've ever been at home. I was at home for 18 months. So that was because I had been at home for 6 months before the first lockdown happened, and then we had the year. So we tried to make the most of it. But I don't know if people are still, at enough of a distance to be able to process it. I certainly don't know if I am enough to be able to give you a coherent or enlightening answer about that. I'm still figuring it out, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a day by day process, for sure. But
yeah.
But now the film is coming out. Quiet Place Part 2 is coming out. Have you needed a refresher course in the movie? Because it's been obviously a long time since you shot it. Did you have to go back and see it again just to remind yourself of what it was about and what was happening?
I didn't see it. I would love to actually see it again. I don't generally like watching my own films, but watching that film in a cinema with an audience was amazing, because it is pure cinema. I mean, it demands to be watched in a dark room with a load of strangers. It's that sort of experience. I haven't seen it since, but it's very vivid in my mind, the making of it, even though it was 2 years ago now. And it was such a hugely positive experience for me, the work and and my relationship with John and Emily, and it's been I have a great affection for the people involved and for the film.
In what way was it a very positive experience for you? It's remained vivid in your mind. Was there something specific about it?
It felt, well, I'd never come on board for a sequel. I'd never done that before, and so it was a very well established little environment and community they have. Because John and Emily obviously are a couple, and they have their kids, and then Noah and Millie, you knew each other so well from the first one, and they welcomed me in really in a lovely way into that atmosphere. And then we shot it in upstate New York during the summer, and it was beautiful. And I know the movie is quite heavy sometimes in its themes and what it's dealing with, but all I just remember is a lot of laughing and a lot of like sore legs, but then just meeting up for dinner, and it was just a good time, and also a really a deep feeling that we're making good work. John Krasinski is outrageously talented, like as a writer and as a director and as an actor. It's insane how good he is, and to arrive that fully formed as a director is something else. So I trusted him implicitly, and he gives brilliant notes. And then I've been a huge admirer of Emily Blunt for many, many years, and I've never met her or worked with her. But to act with someone of that quality, it's always such a treat, and we had very charged, very intense scenes. So it was a really good time, a really good job.
What sort of things do you look for in directors? I mean, you've obviously worked with some amazing directors over the years, Ken Loach and Danny Boyle and Chris Nolan, just to name but three. So do they have shared characteristics? Do you like to sit down and interrogate directors before you work with them?
Generally, I've been fans of their work before I've worked with them. Like all of those directors that you mentioned, I would have been fans of their work. Like I would have had a Trainspotting poster on my bedroom wall, like I would have seen Memento in the cinema, I would have watched Kes, growing up, I would have watched Sweet 16, so first and foremost, I'm a fan. And then I guess, that director then has a hugely strong and confident vision. And your role then is just purely to help them achieve that vision and to do the best you can in making the piece of cinema work. That's what I really feel my role is, in the work.
And with John, though, there is perhaps less of a body of work there, but you have The First Quiet Place as a director. Obviously, he was in The Office for a few years. We know what he can do as an actor. But I had a similar experience with A Quiet Place, in that I saw it and I thought this is an instant classic, if that's not an oxymoron. And this is a fantastic piece of filmmaking. Where has this guy been hiding all this time? Did you have a similar experience watching that movie? Because watching that movie with an audience was something else.
Yeah, I had the exact same experience, to the point where I drafted an email to John Krasinski after watching the first one, because I was so blown away by the film. It was my favorite film of that year. I wrote an email, or drafted an email to him saying, look, man, you don't know me from Adam, but I just think that was an extraordinary achievement, what you did. It broke my heart. It made me cry. It was a stunning piece of work. But I never sent the email. So I just chickened out at the end. I got too embarrassed. I never sent the email. But then he emailed me a year later. So there was some sort of some good serendipity going on there. So yeah, but my thing about that thing about you can learn the mechanics of a film set. You can learn what lenses to use and where to put a camera. But to innately know how to tell a story and to get that reaction from an audience and to have that emotional, visceral response, to create that, you can't learn that. That's just something you have, and he has that.
This movie is, I guess, inadvertently, I don't know if this is deliberate or not, but this is the third part of the Cillian Murphy Apocalypse trilogy. So obviously you have 28 Days Later, you have Sunshine as well. And now it's obviously 3 movies studded across a fantastic career across many, many years. But is this a genre, or is this a theme that you yourself are drawn to, this idea of surviving in a post-apocalyptic world and what that means?
I never think of films in genres. I genuinely don't. I think of them in terms of good films or bad films, or good scripts or not good scripts, and that is all I'm attracted to. And is good scripts or original scripts, or conceptually interesting scripts. And so it just happens that these films, I suppose, sort of fall into those categories. I do think they're all quite different, but they're just scripts that I read and went, this is seriously good writing. These are seriously good directors. I would like to be involved. And I never for a minute, I don't think any actor does think, oh, this is another horror or thriller or whatever. They don't think about that. You just think this could be a great film. I think this is a good part I could do something with.
Just going back to this idea that you almost manifested this movie into being for you by not sending the email to John Krasinski. Did you not send it to him because you were trying to guess his email address, or what was it about? And you just thought, I'm not sure. Is it John Krasinski at AOL.com? I'm not entirely sure. Or, were you thinking to yourself, I don't know. Was there a reason why you didn't press send on that email after all?
I think I have form in like pestering directors. I've done it earlier in my career where I've really wanted part, and I've emailed and got in contact and kept pursuing roles. But in this case, I just felt he's going to think that I want something, or he's going to think that I'm just kissing his ass, or, where I wasn't. I was just being a fan. But I think we're actors are a little bit too nervous about that. So when you actually do meet someone and you say, oh man, I'm a huge fan of your work, they're genuinely touched by it and they genuinely appreciate it. But because everything in our business is generally through intermediates, like through agents, you rarely get to see other people unless you work with them or you meet them at a social event. I don't go to any of those, so I don't ever see people. So I think it is nice when you actually do reach out. On that occasion, I lost faith. I lost confidence in myself. But I'm glad I didn't now because it worked out.
Presumably you told John this.
Oh, many times. He takes the piss out of me about it all the time.
And does it work the other way? Do you get, young actors now coming up to you or sending you emails and sending you stuff as well?
It happens when I do theatre, because people will come and see the play and they'll come and meet you after the play, and because then you're socially available there. But generally, I just go home and I don't really see many people. So, but it's nice when you do a play and you go and you meet other actors and you can have a discussion about stuff.
You sound a lot like me, Cillian. You sound like you were hermetically sealed before the pandemic. So when the pandemic came along, it was like it hadn't really changed.
Yeah, I do like my home comforts, I have to say. I'm quite happy being at home.
Thing is, I can work from home because this is what I do. I just, I talk to people and I write stuff. But it's difficult for an actor, I guess, because you need to be out there, right? You need to be out there creating and waiting for things to happen must have been quite tricky, I guess.
Yes, but what I've realized is that what works for me is to work very, very intensely. Like I've been away from home now for 5 months doing Peaky Blinders. So I work very, very intensely, and then I'll take a long period of time off. And that seems to balance out then. What I couldn't do is the continuous thing of working job to job to job. I don't have the stamina for that. I don't have the sort of emotional space in my head for that, but I can go hard and like get really involved and like immerse myself in something and then just leave it all behind.
Without giving too much away about the movie and about your character as well, there's a lovely relationship between you and Millicent Simmons' character in the movie. I had the pleasure of talking to her for the magazine a few weeks ago. She's absolutely fantastic. What was that experience like working with her and working on those scenes?
I mean, she's properly sensational. You know, she's so good. I remember that in the cinema, seeing it, the first one, you just couldn't. She has this presence, you know, she has in person and she has on screen. And that's something you can't learn either. That's just star presence. And I loved observing her when we were working because she could just exist in a scene. You know, she didn't need to think about it or intellectualize it. She could just exist in a scene. And you're always chasing that as an actor. That's the sort of the holy grail of acting, is to just exist. And she does it effortlessly.
Has that happened for you? When was the last time you achieved that holy grail?
Oh man, I don't know. You're always after it, and it comes and it goes, and you know you're always after it. And sometimes you might think it's happening, but the other actors going, "Man, what's going on here?" You know, it happens. It can happen easier on stage because you're playing out the whole story, the whole narrative in order. For real, it feels like. So it can happen. It's much easier to achieve that state on stage because film is just, you know, acting in moments, telling stories in tiny little moments. But it's also, you know, she's a young performer and she's not old and cynical like me. So she's just got it.
Indeed. Well, listen, I will let you go, and long may your pursuit of the holy grail of acting continue. It's been a pleasure. Once again, Cillian Murphy, thanks so much indeed.
Nice to chat to you, man.
Likewise.
Mind yourself.
Take care.